All right, awesome. We are live. We are live. Awesome. I'm super excited for everyone to jump on here today. Like I mentioned before, I wanted to bring in a guest speaker this month for our mom community. And for those of you that are part of our Mom Academy, I was super pumped when I met Joyce Marter through her incredible network. And when I found Joyce in all the professional books and articles that I was reading, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get in contact with you, because I love the mindset piece when it comes to the things that you teach, and even more so just for women in general, because I think sometimes as women we tend to just underestimate our capabilities and our abilities to really be successful. So I'm excited to welcome Joyce Marter and share on who she is and what she does. And then we'll just jump right into what we're going to talk about, which is the mom mental load. So Joyce Marter is a licensed psychotherapist and national keynote speaker, media contributor, founder of Urban Balance, adjunct faculty at the Family Institute at Northwestern University, and author of The Financial Mindset Fix, a mental fitness program for an abundant life, which is amazing. And I think that's officially out in Amazon this July, but we'll talk a little bit more about that and what that book is all about. But I'm super excited to have you here today, Joyce. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and share a little bit about who you are and what brought you to doing what you're doing now.
Absolutely. Natalie, I'm so glad that we met, and thank you so much for having me. I am so passionate about supporting women and moms in becoming our best selves. So I've been a licensed psychotherapist for about 20 years, and I came into the field because I really care about our emotional connection with each other and the world around us. And I am a huge believer in destigmatizing mental health issues. I think we all have mental health just like we have physical health, and we all deal with whether it's stress, anxiety, depression, relationship issues, grief and loss as human beings. And I find my work as a therapist incredibly rewarding to help people recover and heal and believe in themselves and blossom into their best self, both personally and professionally, especially women, because we just manage so much as working moms. And there's so many challenges that I think we all deal with self-esteem issues. So I love sharing tools and tips to help women through public speaking and now through my book, which I'm excited about.
I love that. Love that. And especially the piece of everybody has to take care of their mental health, right? And but before we jump into that and those little details, I wanted to ask you, just as you're a professional, you are very successful in what you're doing. I wanted to learn on, you as yourself, as a mom yourself, what did you find to be the most difficult aspect of juggling your career and growing and running a business and home life?
It's super challenging. I think one of the challenges is being spread really thin. We're busy all the time. The research shows that women still do 80% of the housework and childcare. And then we have our jobs on top of that. So we're at risk for superwoman burnout, which I definitely suffered from. And it was difficult to recover from that. And so I like to support women in preventing that. And I think that mother guilt is also something that myself and many women deal with, because we feel like we're maybe falling a little bit short in all areas of our life. I remember sitting in sessions with clients and worried that my breast milk was going to leak, or I had goldfish, in my pocket, never quite felt together. And it's hard. And so, we need tools and strategies. So I'm so happy that you have a community like this to support women.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I found with my kids were much younger, they're still young, but is like, where do we find the resources? Like, where do we go to just share that, like, these little pieces and details of that overwhelm? Like, the pumping at work, like, that was super stressful for me. And I worked at, in a hospital at the time, and you rarely got breaks, so you add that into, like motherhood and everything else you have on board. It's, you know, how do we do it? Because I didn't have any help for the first 7 years. I think it was like five, no, I think first 5 years of motherhood. Uh,
Wow.
my only help was my mom, which thank God, for mothers again, because mothers
Yeah.
always are there. They're always there.
Our
But
work is never done.
no, it's never done. So get ready, ladies, when you have grandkids. um, but yeah, it's like, how do we, where can we get the help? Where can moms go to? And what's like the number one advice you'd give, a mom who is feeling alone and is struggling with that mom mental load?
Well, I think two big pieces of advice. One is to prioritize your own health and wellness. I think as women, we're socialized to put other people first, especially our children, and then we suffer. And sometimes we think that self-care is selfish, but it's actually essential. It's like when we're on an airplane and they say you have to secure your own oxygen mask before assisting others. You really do need to practice self-care, make sure that you're getting enough sleep, exercise, proper nutrition. And the second piece is that you have support. And so that is asking for support from friends and family and being specific about what you need. That's emotional support, spiritual support, logistical support, to ask for it and to nurture your support network so that you have people on your team. I found that connecting with moms who had kids similar ages was so normalizing and validating, because we sometimes compare our insides with other people's outsides and we imagine everyone else is doing great and we're the only ones that are having a hard time and feeling inadequate. And if you have a circle of moms that you can talk about, you know what, this is hard. And I am dealing with some depression or some relationship issues. My relationship isn't perfect or ideal. Then you're going to get support. I obviously am a therapist, so I think we all need therapy or counseling at different points in our lives. A lot of times people say to me, when will I know if I need therapy? And I think we all need it. And it can be a routine and preventative form of healthcare, like going to the dentist or the doctor. And it is affordable and accessible.
I love that. I'm so grateful you said that. And honestly, um, unfortunately, there's a lot of stigma tied to working with a therapist. Like most people, at least when me growing up, and I grew up in a Hispanic culture. I'm Hispanic, and my background, there's a lot of negative connotations related to anything related mental health. There is myths that doesn't exist. It's just all in your head, or
Yes.
or you have to be really sick to get help. And so I grew up with that mentality, and I didn't get help until 2 years ago. And my oldest is almost 10.
Yeah.
So how can we combat this, this mindset around therapy and these negative connotations that come with that, and the fear? Because I hear a lot of times moms say, well, I tried it and it didn't work for me, or there, I didn't like my therapist, or I didn't want to just sit there and talk. Like, what's the best strategy to, help moms to seek that help and to get the right partnership, right? Because it's also finding the right person.
It absolutely is. And you brought up many important issues. The first being about stigma. And there are cultural implications for stigma. So different cultures have different beliefs about mental health. And as you said, some cultures don't believe it's real, don't think that the help is effective, or don't believe that anyone should be talking about those types of personal matters outside of the family. And unfortunately, that does us a great disservice because, like I said, we all have mental health. We all have our brains are predispositioned to respond to stress with either anxiety, depression, or addiction. And as moms, we are under tremendous stress. And it's a normal response to have some mental health symptoms. It is not a weakness, no shame, no stigma. It's not your fault. It's just like getting sick physically. And help is available and it is effective. I mean, the research shows that cognitive behavioral therapy, really looking at your self-talk and silencing your inner critic and shifting your thinking to more positive thinking is going to help you feel so much better. There's so many tools for mindfulness and other approaches that can really help you promote your mental wellness and improve your relationship skills and improve your functioning at work and home. And I think that, sometimes people don't realize that getting the help is not only going to address the problems, but it's going to help you do better. And so in terms of finding someone that's a good fit, the research shows that people do the best in therapy when they found a therapist that they like. So it almost doesn't matter what their school of thought is or their approach. It's that you feel safe and comfortable and that they're empathic, that they understand you, that they're present, they're not judging you, and they're there for you. And so a lot of therapists offer a free 20-minute consultation. So I encourage people to take advantage of that. Sites like Psychology Today are like Match.com for finding a therapist. And they have our photos and bios and profiles, and some people even have videos, so you can pick someone that's a good fit. Many people have an EAP benefit where they might even have free sessions available to them. About 80% of employed people have an EAP. And you can have 3 to 8 sessions per year per issue, and so can your family members. So sometimes our partners need tune-ups, or our kids. My kids are 16 and 19, and I've had them. They've definitely been in therapy. We all have. I have a therapist. I think we all did.
I love that. I love that. Well, yeah, first off, I think more people need to see influencers and people that are successful. They're getting therapy. It's not, like you said, it's not about being broken or, being weak, and I think that for me, for a long time, I thought like, well, I'm weak. I can't, just suck it up, keep pushing. That was the mindset that I had. And I grew up with, like, you don't complain, just keep going. And then I had panic attacks. I had all this accumulation, and I was the typical, I would blow up because I would accumulate. And that was what I learned to do. And then finally, a friend of mine who was a school therapist, thank goodness for her wisdom. And she was the first person that came to mind when I was having my last panic attack. And she's like, have you ever seen a therapist? And I'm like, no, I never thought to. And so I love, it's again, making it normal for others to see, like, this is normal. This is, and I don't even want to like use the word normal, because I think that that's also comes with its negative connotations, but it's just part of our daily, like, seeing your doctor every year. And the other piece too, I love the dating app, and I think that, giving people permission to even date, like go on a date and find out who you would be a good match with. I think too many people quit after one. Yes. And it's like, what, you wouldn't do that with your significant other. Like, I'm sure it took multiple people dating to find the right person. So I love that idea, and again, make it normal for people to just look around and shop around for the right fit. But you're right. Like, the sooner the better, I think, that we can get them in.
Absolutely. And you can be direct with your therapist. I mean, you can say, hey, I'm shopping around. I'd like to have an initial consultation, see if it's a good fit. And that's totally normal. That's totally fine. And if it's not, you can say, you know what, it's just not a fit. And no hard feelings, that happens. Mm-hmm. And you can let your therapist know. If you have a therapist that just sits there and listen, you can say, you know what, I need more directive feedback. Mm-hmm. And I want that from you. And for me, when I started graduate school to become a therapist, I was really worried that my professors were going to see that I dealt with anxiety and that they were going to tell me that I couldn't be a therapist because I was anxious. And thank God they recognize that most therapists come into the field because we have our own issues. We've been through stuff in our own families and we want to help other people. So they encourage us to get our personal therapy. And that was life-changing for me. It gave me a language and lens through which to understand my life and my family. We're all shaped and molded by our earlier life experiences. We've all probably experienced some degree of trauma. and different attachment issues and relationship issues that we carry on unless we work through them. So it helps our kids too. When we do our mental health work, we're better moms, and then we're not passing on that intergenerational trauma or kind of negative mental health issues onto our kids, and we're setting a positive example.
Yes, I love that, and I love that your kids are doing it too. I'm trying to think, when did you introduce your kids to it? Because my kids are still young, but I would love to get them into it.
I think so. I went through divorce about, let's see, now it's been about 7 years, and now I'm happily remarried, and I have two beautiful stepchildren who are 22 and 25. My girls are 19 and 16.
Mhm.
And when I went through divorce, I had them go to therapy, and that has been really super helpful. And it's been helpful not only for them, but for me and for their dad. And sometimes the therapist, they have the same one, will ask to talk to either one of us. And it's been helpful for co-parenting. And, you know, kids have issues at different points. And sometimes we think the early years are hard, but unfortunately the teenage years are challenging too in different ways. So it
Right.
takes a village, and having therapists for your kids can be really helpful.
That's amazing. Yes, I think that would have been beneficial for me in my teenage years. I probably would have avoided a lot of things, seeking, just those negative behaviors, right? It's like it's that sign that something else is going on, and getting that help is beneficial. So, and speaking of those things, if you could share one thing to moms who are struggling with balancing and juggling career, family, and personal care, um, besides the things that you had just mentioned, what would you suggest as one thing? Obviously, the self care piece is huge, but what else would you recommend for those that are juggling a lot of roles, and are feeling overwhelmed and don't know how to alleviate what all this baggage they're carrying.
Yeah, so mindfulness practices saved my life. So when I had burnout, I started to go to a local yoga studio, and I took a mindfulness meditation class. And
Mhm.
there are apps like Calm and Headspace
I
that
love
offer free 30-day trials, and there's a ton of guided meditations that are free on YouTube. I
Mhm.
like Deepak Chopra and Oprah's 21-day guided meditation. And John Kabat-Zinn is kind of the founding father of modern day mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Mhm.
And so he has some guided meditations and things. Deep breathing and meditation and yoga are all mindfulness practices that calm our minds and bodies and bring our attention to the here and now. So we spend a lot of time ruminating about the past or worrying about the future, and peace can be found in the present moment. So taking even a few minutes a day for some deep breathing and some, connecting with your senses, connecting with your body, it's going to help you manage stress differently. It's going to improve your emotional intelligence. Yoga is meditation with movement. And I love Yoga with Adriene on YouTube is free.
Okay.
And he has practices. Yoga's for everyone. I used to think, oh gosh, I need to lose weight and get in better shape to do yoga. And that's not true. Everyone can do yoga. There's basic classes, there's restorative classes that are basically like taking a nap. And they're really helpful. When I first went to a restorative class, I felt like I went to church, therapy, and had a nap all in 1 hour. I felt so much better.
I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned Calm app. I don't know how I found the Calm app. I don't know if it was an ad or something. And I had tried other apps before, and I wasn't too crazy about them. And when I tried the Calm app, I love that it has categories specific to what you're feeling. So there's ones, I love that there's ones for forgiveness. There's ones for, releasing the tension. It's very personalized. And so I found a huge difference by having specific ones related to how I was feeling and being more aware of how I was feeling. So it's definitely a powerful tool. And I loved, um, I started to practice this actually in the last 6 months, doing it consistently for like 20 minutes. You know, my perfect timing, I call it, my like sweet spot is about 20 to 30 minutes.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, it's made such a huge difference, in just taking a pause, you know, especially when I'm noticing like that, like heart pumping, I'm feeling stressed, anxious. I know that's like a sign of, okay, Natalie, you need to take a break. You need to just unplug and take a moment. And what a difference it's made. And it's allowed me to become more resilient to those stresses throughout the day. It's not like the stress is taken away, you know, and I think that often that's what we want.
Yes.
We want to eliminate the all the stuff, and unfortunately life, it doesn't work that way. Hopefully
Yes.
that's the goal. And that's, you know, eventually we want to you know, probably eliminate some things off our plate. But for the initial, you know, storm that we're living, right, I
Yes.
think the deep breathing is a powerful tool, and I love that. I love that you mentioned that.
Absolutely. I've had the same response where I found a courage meditation helps me before my speaking engagements. I feel so much better. And the sleep meditations help me fall asleep better. The research has shown if you have a mindful moment in the morning, it sets up your whole day for success. So rather than reaching for your phone right away, and I found this when my kids were young, that if I set my alarm a half hour before they typically woke up and gave myself some time to have coffee and breathe, that my whole day went better.
Yeah.
And there was something else that you said, oh, about resilience. I'm so glad that you mentioned that,
Mhm.
because resilience is the ability to bounce back and to move through stressors. And we can develop resilience through mindfulness practices.
Mhm.
Actually, one time a military officer, and I know you're from a military family, came into our yoga studio and he said, you know, we do yoga in the military, but they don't call it yoga. And we said, what do they call it? And he said, resilience training. Isn't that interesting? Because when you hold a difficult pose, you know you can breathe through it. It's going to pass. You're going to be okay. And in the end, you're going to be stronger, more balanced, and more flexible.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Yes, and I've myself being in the military, we have to do the annual resiliency trainings, and it's like over and over and over again. But there is power to it, and there, I mean, who out of all members in the world need resiliency training? And it's those in the force, you know, those that are being thrown into very stressful environments. And I think that if we can apply that same training into parenting, because parenting is like a war zone many times. It's overwhelming, and it's unpredictable, and it's, you know, there's a lot of outliers. And so if we can train ourselves like the military, imagine like the power we have in our homes, you know, as
Yeah.
parents.
You know, you just reminded me of something I really wanted to share, and that is there's another mindfulness practice called detachment. And I think sometimes we think detachment is something bad, like it means we don't care or that we're aloof or we're in denial or disconnected. But healthy detachment is really important in being a mom. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. When I had my second daughter, my first daughter was 3 years old. And my sort of perfect older sister with perfect daughters came to visit me. And my 3-year-old had a huge meltdown when I was trying to put her to bed. She was like rolling on the floor. And I was so embarrassed that my sister was hearing this. And I ended up getting in a little power struggle with my 3-year-old, which of course she won. And so, when I came down the stairs, my sister said to me, she said, Joyce, you have to learn to detach. She said, you locked horns with her.
Mm.
And she said, you basically need to pull back and zoom out and breathe. And I realized that I believe in that cognitive behavioral therapy. And I realized that when my daughter was having a meltdown, the thought that I had in my head was, if my daughter's freaking out, then I'm a bad mom. I'm not doing a good job. And I felt shame and inadequacy.
Mm.
And that made me then act like a bad mom because I was angry and frustrated. And so instead, paying attention to slow down and say, you know what? I'm a good mom and I'm doing the best that I can. And this is normal. And it was interesting to me because a couple days after this happened, I saw my friend Laura carrying her toddler out of preschool, and her toddler was freaking out, having a temper tantrum. And Laura was just holding her under her arm, and she was like, "Hey, Joyce, how's it going?" Like,
Oh my gosh.
she wasn't bothered at all. She had healthy detachment. She's like, that's normal for a 3-year-old to be freaked
Mm.
out. She wasn't embarrassed. She was just like, hey, this is part of being a mom.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I definitely need some practice on detachment because my 4-year-old is, out of the three of my children, has been the worst temper tantrums I've ever had to experience. And I'm learning not to be emotionally attached to it, because they exacerbate. They get worse when I got attached to it, when I've gotten to attached to it. And so, man, that's a hard practice for that one because
It is
it's
a hard practice, and it's a skill that can be developed. And with teenagers, I've had to, get even better at it. But it's just like in lifeguard training, they say that you don't want to jump in the water with the person. That's the last resort. You want to stay safe and grounded. So if you can stay calm and balanced and have some healthy neutrality and separation, you can observe your kid without absorbing their freak out,
yeah.
you're going to respond better. So it's something we have to work on.
I love that. Love that. And so I wanted to ask you, because I know that in the last 20 years that you working with your clients and your patients, that you noticed a trend, and that trend was that as people started to resolve whatever the baggage that they were carrying, they started to become financially stable or abundant, right? In
Yeah.
some aspect. And so can you share of, like, because we're going to kind of lean into a little bit more about your book, and how that knowledge and this continuous trend in your work, brought you to write this book. So yeah, can you share a little bit more on your book and what the mission behind all that is?
Thank you so much. So, yeah, I noticed in my practice that as clients made progress in therapy, they started earning more money. They were getting raises and promotions and starting their own side hustle and businesses. And I was like, why is this happening? Because we're not even talking about money. And it was because, just like you said, their mental health issues were getting resolved and their self-esteem was increasing. We all have self-esteem issues as part of the human condition. And when we feel more confident, we put ourselves out in the world differently. We go for those promotions. We negotiate. We value ourselves. We advocate for ourselves with assertive behavior. We set healthy limits and boundaries in our relationships, and that shapes our financial reality. I've also become really interested in the psychology of money, how our belief systems, our thoughts, and the way we manage our emotions around money and our behaviors with money shape our financial reality. So my book is called The Financial Mindset Fix, and it's a mental fitness program for an abundant life. So an abundant life includes mental wellness, physical wellness, work-life balance, supported relationships, and financial prosperity. And the book has 12 chapters. Each is a mindset that is empirically supported to promote mental health and financial health. And it has a ton of practical and fun exercises to help you build these skills. So I hope it helps women really feel better and succeed more, both personally and professionally, and have that balance in their lives.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I love that. And for any of you who's watching live, you guys can jump in and throw any questions as we're kind of coming in towards the end of our live here. But I love this, and the fact that I've seen it myself in the clients I've coached. A lot of times, like you mentioned, they come with different baggages for different reasons. There's different things that they're seeking professional help. And it's interesting to see that there's certain aspects or blocks that they don't realize is impacting other areas. And I find that, because I grew up in a low socioeconomic community, there's a lot of people that are stuck in this poor man mindset, and mothers also who are stuck in this mindset, and they transfer those beliefs and those same things to their children. And so in the community I grew up in, there's, I think, more than half of the families that are living on government support. And, one of the things that I'm super passionate about is helping moms to get out of that mindset. Like, there's the sky's the limit. There's so much abundance around us. Like, it doesn't matter whether you live on government support, you don't have to be there forever. If you can pull one thing from the book that you can share today on helping, especially women who are in that situation where they're either living off government help or, they've just been stuck. What is one thing you would share with those women who feel like they don't have enough, that they'll never have enough, they don't have enough time, like it's all the lack mindset. What would
Yeah.
you tell them?
Well, I would tell them that financial trauma is a real thing, and many people suffer from financially triggered post-traumatic stress disorder. So if you grew up in poverty, or your family went through unemployment or foreclosure, or many different forms of financial trauma, that shapes your money story. And it shapes your beliefs about money. And it's really important to honor that trauma and how it impacted you emotionally, how it impacted your sense of worth in the world. Unfortunately, members of marginalized communities, have as a result of systemic racism and bias and discrimination, have been negatively impacted financially, and that's real. And so, honoring that, and I mean, it sucks and it's super hard to it takes extra work. And here that's so sad because people have been marginalized, but it takes even more work to love yourself and care about yourself and believe in yourself and your children to welcome the life that you deserve. And I've helped so many clients recover and move through that and create a different financial reality, change that legacy, change that story for their family.
I love that. And as a coach myself, and this is more of a personal question, what would you encourage people like myself who are out there, kind of, I call us the soldiers that are out there, trying to bring people in and trying to teach these things in a smaller scale, like we're like working from the bottom up, right? What would you suggest for professionals like ourselves who are in this war zone with these moms and parents? What would you suggest for us? First off, I'm going to get the book so I can use those tools. But what would you recommend for us? Because, I'm in an environment of other coaches, and we're teaching and training other people who are in that lack mindset. We're not therapists, so that's not who we are. We're not here as therapy. And I think one of the big things I always suggest for someone who's not ready for coaching to seek therapy. But for those that are ready for coaching, like, what would you suggest for us to help our community?
Absolutely. And you brought up the lack mindset, which is like the scarcity mindset. And you're right. My book talks about how to recover from that and move to abundant thinking. But I think one of the biggest things is accessing community. I believe in a spiritual web of people and that we come into each other's lives for a reason. I believe that's why you and I met. And if we can plug into our network and support each other. So when you meet someone, think about what you can give to them, how you can support them through introductions or resources or information or opportunities. And you can develop relationships for mentoring and people who can lift you up. I'm a big believer in identifying heroes, so people who you admire and modeling yourself after them and asking for, if you can shadow them, if you can help them in some way so that you can learn from them.
I love that. And it's so true. It's the circle. It's who you're surrounding yourself with on a daily basis. And I truly believe like the top 5 people that you hang out with and you relate to are are the mirror to who you're becoming or who you are. And so I truly believe that I think we need to be willing to get out of our comfort zone. I think that so often we fall back to, well, it's more comfortable to hang out with my friends who don't have jobs, and because they have the same mindset, right? And it's, how do we get out of that world and introduce ourselves? So I think I love what I'm taking from this too is creating an environment and a community for people that they feel like they're welcomed, that they don't need to have a certain aspect of success or intelligence in order to be part of that community, that they're able to feel welcomed and also given the strategies to be successful and to taught how to do the work, right? Do the work that's required for them. So I really do appreciate you coming on today and just sharing this incredible knowledge. This is just literally the tip of the iceberg, and I know that there's so much work ahead of us. But honestly, like, this is why we're here, and you guys can see the website. I just posted it on under here, but you guys can go to Joyce's website at financialmindsetfix.com. She also has her book coming out on Amazon this July, but I believe you can do pre-orders, correct?
Yes, it's available for pre-orders now on Amazon, Walmart, Target, and it'll be in all major bookstores on the 27th of July, and it'll be published in Spanish later this year.
Oh, that's incredible. I love that. Love it. Yeah, like more than half of my community is Spanish. So that's incredible. So I'm excited, and thank you again so much for taking the time today to share. And just, I hope that who's ever watching this live or watches the replay, that you've gotten something that you can jot down and apply. Because I know that there's just these small little tweaks we can make on a daily basis to improve our mental health, reduce the mental load, the mom mental load that we're carrying. And also at some point build financial wealth, because I think at the end of the day, like, we're all kind of motivated by that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. And I welcome people to follow me on social media. Again, my name is Joyce Marter, Marter. And I'd love to connect on LinkedIn, or I try to post inspirational things on Instagram and Facebook. So I'd love to be a support and resource as I can be to your community.
Thank you so much. Yes, and so again, I'll post all her pages and content where you can find her as well on the comments after this live. So if any of you want to reach out, you can totally reach out to her. Well, thank you again so much, Joyce. I appreciate your time. I look forward to any future partnerships and hopefully more educational opportunities for our community, because I know that you are a wealth of knowledge. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Mwah. Thank you for having me. This has been fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
All right, end the broadcast.